Hi, my name is John Olsheimer, and I am a credit expert who contributes to creditcardinsider.com. And today's question is this: is there anything worse than bankruptcy? Very concise and easy question with a very complicated answer with a lot of meat on the bone. The answer to the question, quite frankly, is yes. There is something worse than bankruptcy, and what was worse than bankruptcy was the position you were in prior to filing for bankruptcy, which means it was very likely that you had an incredible amount of debt that you were unable to pay. It was very likely in some form of default. You were being called by collection agencies and hounded by them for payment that you can't make, or it was a possibility that your wages were being garnished and that you were possibly being sued by your creditors for non-payment. Bankruptcy stops every single thing that I just mentioned. Bankruptcy is legal protection from your creditors, and as long as your debt is what's referred to as statutorily dischargeable, meaning that it's legally dischargeable in bankruptcy, then by filing bankruptcy, most of the time Chapter 7 will completely dissolve the debt, or what's referred to as discharge the debt, which means that you don't owe it any longer. So that's the good news. The bad news is what is the impact of bankruptcy? And a bankruptcy is basically like rolling a hand grenade into your credit report and having it explode. A bankruptcy pollutes your credit report with not only information about the filing of the bankruptcy, but also every single debt that is included in the bankruptcy or discharged by the bankruptcy is also being listed as such on your credit report. So if you have collections, judgments, accounts from credit card issuers or mortgage lenders or auto lenders that are all now included in the bankruptcy, then every single one of those is going to have a notation on your credit report that says included in bankruptcy, included in bankruptcy. Bankruptcy filings, which is actually the information that comes straight from the courthouse, that information is picked up directly by the credit reporting agencies using a system called PACER, which is public access to courthouse electronic records. Essentially, it's an electronic link to the courthouse records. And actually, since they're public, you can go and pull information off of PACER just as easily as the credit reporting agencies can pull information off of PACER. The filing information about your bankruptcy will remain on your credit reports for 10 years, for a decade. All of the debts that are included in the bankruptcy or have been discharged by the bankruptcy will only remain on the credit report for 7 years from the date that the account went into default. If you have collections, those will only remain for 7 years from the date the original account went into default. So if you have collections for things like broken apartment leases or defaulted utility bills, whenever those items went into default, add 7 years to that, and that's when any subsequent collections associated with that original debt, that's when those collections have to be removed as well. As far as accounts or debts that are not dischargeable in a bankruptcy, things like child support, lawyer's fees, tax liens or tax obligations, federally guaranteed student loans. Those items are not dischargeable in bankruptcy, so filing bankruptcy is going to do you no good protecting you from the creditors and the companies that are trying to collect those types of debts. As far as the impact to your credit score, well, as you probably can imagine, the impact of a bankruptcy is catastrophic. But having said that, it's very likely that you had severely derogatory information on your credit reports before you filed bankruptcy. So filing bankruptcy isn't really going to have any sort of incremental impact, negative impact to your credit scores because they are probably so low already that all of the damage really has already been done. What the bankruptcy will do, unfortunately, is it's going to prolong the amount of time that you have a low score, because remember, the filing stays on for a decade. And while your score will likely improve over time organically, because you're putting yourself between the event of bankruptcy filing and yourself, you're putting time in between those two events, you're probably not going to have the really elite credit scores in the 700s, high 700s and 800s until that item is actually off of your credit report. But you'd be surprised just how quickly lenders are going to continue or start sending you offers of credit soon after you file for bankruptcy, because they realize that you now no longer have any debt or have much less debt than you did prior to your bankruptcy. And if you're employed with no debt, then all of a sudden you may appear to be a better credit risk than you were prior to your filing. So it's a little bit counterintuitive to how lenders treat you after you filed for bankruptcy. So if you have any other questions pertaining to credit or other financial topics, please submit them to creditcardinsider.com. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.